Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real History. I am your host, History Professor Jared Frederick. And as a follow-up to our recent reaction to All Quiet on the Western Front, we thought we would do a sequel of sorts and take a look at Steven Spielberg's new The Fabelmans. This is an autobiographical film that is loosely based, or perhaps not so loosely based, on Steven Spielberg's own life as an aspiring filmmaker. I haven't yet taken a look at this trailer, although I'm really intrigued considering the source material. So let's go ahead and take a look at the trailer for The Fabelmans.
Movies are dreams.
Well, we have the opening with the Lionel train here. I believe Steven Spielberg's first film as a child, made on a home camera, was done with a Lionel train, so undoubtedly that's what we see here. And Michelle Williams is playing his mother, and I've heard she does a really good performance in this film.
The lights change how everything looks. It's hard to find our house.
Ours is the dark house with no lights.
And there's a subtle tip of the hat to perhaps some of the anti-Semitism that the Spielbergs faced as he was growing up. Oh, The Greatest Show on Earth. That's a classic film. Best Picture winner from the 1950s by Cecil B. DeMille.
What kind of movie are we gonna make?
And Spielberg likewise was in the Boy Scouts, and in fact he earned a merit badge for photography, and so he had a good creative eye from the outset.
You could afford to be a little encouraging.
His mother was an expert piano player. His dad worked for RCA, and so as the trailer here suggests, we have a very technical family man, bread and butter issues, provide for your family, and then we have the mom who is the more creative muse sort of person. Oh, and we see a recreation there of Escape to Nowhere, which was a 40-minute war film that Spielberg made when he was about 13 or 14 years of age.
You stop making movies, it'll break your mother's heart.
And with the young student being punched in the nose, Spielberg has admitted that he was in fact punched in the nose once or twice because of his Jewish heritage.
What was your favorite part?
Oh wow, that looks quite good. So there were a number of things that intrigued me as we took a look at this. I think in many ways this will be a very good representation of what childhood was like in 1950s and 1960s America. Spielberg was born in Cincinnati. His family later moved to New Jersey, and then they moved to the Phoenix, Arizona area. And filmed out in the desert, as we saw here, is where they shot Escape to Nowhere. And that film is actually available, I believe, in its entirety on YouTube. And what in essence it was is that it was Spielberg, and he got a bunch of middle school friends together, took them out into the desert, and essentially played war. As Spielberg said, it was all that macho stuff that all of the war movies, the heroic war films of the 1950s often embraced. Seizing the outpost, storming the hill. These were some of the things that were reflected in it. And I believe the soundtrack that he used was Cry of the Valkyries, which was, of course, later used in Apocalypse Now. So if you haven't seen any of Escape to Nowhere, be sure to check it out, because you can very much get a sense of how Spielberg was maturing and aspiring to be a filmmaker. And of course, he would make many iconic war films down the road. I think another thing that makes this film unique is that we, the audience, will be able to make the connections, and we will be able to see how a lot of these movies that young Spielberg saw as a child and a teenager later influenced him, and then in turn how it influenced and shaped us. some of the really iconic films that Spielberg saw in movie theaters included Pinocchio, The Greatest Show on Earth, Akira Kurosawa films, and also Lawrence of Arabia. And Lawrence of Arabia, that wonderful epic from the early 1960s, directed by David Lean, seems to be the film that captured the imagination of so many filmmakers, everybody from Steven Spielberg to Spike Lee. And in short, we just don't make epics like that anymore. And when you watch that, especially on a big screen, it's easy to understand how somebody like young Spielberg could be so captivated by it. One aspect of this film that I'm really going to relish is the fact that it is written by screenwriter Tony Kushner. And in my view, anything that Tony Kushner writes is just gold. And in fact, I would even go as far as to say that Spielberg's best movies since Saving Private Ryan have been written by Tony Kushner. And that is Munich, Lincoln, and West Side Story. And so I think the fact that that Kushner and Spielberg, who I've both met when I was a park ranger at Gettysburg, believe it or not. They were wonderful people to interact with. But I think they're so simpatico. I think they really have a good idea of how to read each other and have expectations of what each other wants in a film, that it's just this perfect meshing together of the technical craft of filmmaking mixed with the creativity, the foundation, the creative foundation that comes in a script. And so all of these things, the connection to cinematic history, the representations of boyhood in post-war America, and the dynamic duo of Spielberg and Kushner, I think this is going to be a fantastic film, and it definitely ranks in the category of a history movie. And hopefully we'll be taking a closer look at it more in depth in a future episode of Real History. Until then, stay curious.